risk-based approach in auditing. One of the principle of quality management system, or for that matter, any management system auditing, is a risk-based approach. I will familiarize yourselves with ISO 17021 standard, which is the standard followed by the certification bodies when they conduct their business. So for the certification activities, the management system of the certification body complies with 17021 requirement, and based on this standard, the accreditation body undertakes the accreditation audit. So when you are performing an audit, essentially you have to have an understanding on the 17021 standard and the processes. So you understand there are a lot of risks in certification activities and auditing process. Standard requires that certification body needs to take into account of the risks associated with providing competent, consistent, and impartial certification. Risk may include, but not limited to, those associated with the objective of the audit. Objective itself can pose risks. What we are trying to achieve. Sometime, for example, our objective is to see conformity assessment to ISO 9001 standard for the purpose of initial certification. Now, the risk could be whether they are ready for this, whether they can demonstrate conformity to that, whether the people are ready, whether there is a feasibility of doing the audit, and so on. An objective of an audit could be follow-up. For example, special audit, short notice audit. That there is a huge complaint in the market that this company has a major product recall. There's a huge litigation and the complaints and the appeal. This information is flooded in the public domain. People are talking very bad about this organization, and possibly your organization was the certification body for that company. Now, this information is in public domain, which is threatening the reputation of your organization and your accreditation body. So, and there's a public interest litigations. So these are like stakeholders are being affected. So your reputation is being impacted. So you need to perform a short notice audit. So if you want to go then and the customer is not cooperating and they are not allowing you to have access, so those kind of things could be part of risk. So you have to understand what kind of risk can come with the scope of audit. Sampling, in another session that I have already given, what kind of risk can come from sampling. Sampling may not be adequate. Sampling may not be reliable. Sampling may be biased. I had a very elaborate discussion and a session on, the sampling process. I encourage you to go through this chapter. Because sampling can bring risk. And this is the reason we give a declaration of disclaimer that there is no time for us to go through all the processes. We take samples. We try to take random samples that gives us sufficient confidence that there is an evidence of effective implementation of management system based on the random sample. But it might be possible that certain deficiencies exists in the system which was not picked up in the audit sample. So there is a risk. Real and perceived impartiality. Now, actual, real and perceived impartiality. Sometimes the standard says a certification body needs to be impartial and also perceived to be impartial. Imagine there is an organization which gives consultation services as well, certification services, which is in direct conflict with each other. So, the certification by this particular certification body may not be perceived as independent. Or sometimes, if an organization gives certification to their group company, then there could be a question of independence. Many years ago, I do remember one of the certification body, a German certification body, was represented in India by another organization, and that partner organization in India was initially certified by the German company. So now they are the partners, so there is a conflict of interest. So the certification body actually discontinued their certification because there is a conflict of perceived impartiality. Legal, regulatory, and other liability issues. So, certification can bring some kind of liability, and those liabilities are part of the declared policies of the organization. So, normally, we as a certification body maintain an indemnity, professional indemnity insurance policy that takes care of some kind of claims and public interest litigations and so on. I cannot name certain organizations for the purpose of code of ethics. Because of the mass complaint that was raised in the market, it wreaked havoc in the market, and the certification body had to pay huge penalty, and they were indeed blacklisted from operation in French market. So there are liability issues, there are legal requirements, there are regulatory requirements with which the organization has to operate, the certification body has to operate, the certified client has to operate. The certification body has to be a legal entity. The certified client organization must also be a legal entity. It's not an organization that remains an imagination in the cloud. It has to be a legal entity which is operating with a governmental directive because it is offering products and services to the customer. So, in case of a liability, there is accountability of the directors and the promoters. So, the certified organization must be a legal entity. Client organization being audited and their operating environment is another issue that needs to be considered while assessing risk. Impact of the audit on the client and its activity. During the audit, we should not disrupt their operation. The certification standard requires that the audits are done with least amount of interruptions in the process. So we do not stop everything during the audit. We get embedded in the process. We witness the system with limited amount of time, with limited amount of sample. With the process owner, we talk, we see certain activities which is ongoing and talk to some people so that the entire operation is not disrupted. At the same time, we should not take any risk to the organization. For example, we should go with proper controls over ourselves. I just remember one incident. I went to a company in Oman and they are into fish processing. So when we were entering, we had to declare that we do not have any health and hygiene issue, any infectious disease or anything, something like that. And they have given us their aprons, and we were going through a stream of disinfectant, and we are completely sterilized. Our shoes, our garments, and everything was sterilized when we have entered because we can carry germs and bacteria, and food processing unit operating environment can be seriously impacted. During the audit, we should not touch any of the equipment and components in the organization. Sometimes you can just touch an emergency shutdown button inadvertently and the whole plant goes into shutdown. So those kind of things, there should not be any impact on the organization. Impact of the audit on the client and its activities, health and safety of the audit team. It is an absolutely important thing that when we go, for example, we have done many audits in oil and gas companies. They are predominantly high risk industry sectors. So before you go, you have to go with some kind of awareness, some kind of preparedness. You are given a deep brief, the kind of safety hazards and risks present inside this. So you cannot take a mobile phone, you cannot take cigarette lighters. You have to go with hard hats, boiler suits, safety shoes, and you have to be possibly having a permit to work system, and you have to report to their operators and will be guided by some people. Certain areas are prohibited to visit, certain areas to go and access. You need to have permission and things like that. So health and safety is very important. Perception of the interested parties. This is another important thing. Misleading statement by the certified client. Sometimes certified client may be certified for certain scope and they can say we are certified for a wide range of scope for which they were not certified. So you need to also ensure that the certified client do not misuse. And one of the most important thing that we see is proper usage of logo and the quality mark of the certification body and their accreditation body where they're using this. They cannot, for example, say this is ISO certified product. Certified organization cannot claim that their product is in conformity to ISO 9001 standard, for example. They can say it's a product of a company which is ISO certified. So product of an ISO certified organization is the perfect declaration they can give. So misleading information cannot be given. And use of mark should be properly made, and normally we check where they're using the company logo, company's accreditation body's logo. Now, these are some of the things that you have to consider. The certification body is required to assess the risks. Now, just imagine how you are going to audit this. So if you are auditor, you will first thing you will ask what kind of risk you have considered. What kind of risk you have considered before you perform an audit. Have you performed a risk assessment? When we are audited by our accreditation body, the first question is that you are required to have a thorough risk assessment, and we are sure that you have done it. We say yes, we have done it. Of course, you have done it. Can I have a look at it? The auditor can ask. Well, I'm going to present you the risk assessment document that we have. They are huge. It is, I think, 14, 15-page document. We have identified various kind of risks associated with our work and how we took care of those risks, brought them down to an acceptable level, and what kind of controls are in place, how frequently we review them and periodically review them, because the risks at all time needs to remain under control to ensure the credibility of the certification that we grant. So let's have a look at what kind of risk assessment we have done. All right, so this is the document, TCB Cert Worldwide. This is our company risk assessment register, TCB Management System Certification Risk Assessment Register Revision 3. So this document has undergone 3 revisions. So there are different types of risks we have identified. Number 1 is impartiality and independence related risk and related body risks. I've given an example. One of the certification body from Germany became a partner of a company which they initially certified. That Indian company was also a German company before. So they were certified, that German division was certified by the German certification body, but they became partner in India. So they had to discontinue their certification. So the impartiality and independence related risks. So TCB is an independent certification body. We have got no business into anything other than inspection, training, and certification. So training can bring some kind of risks in the certification process. And we have talked about this as we move. I will show some amount of training can bring some amount of risks. Certain training and certain kind of training can bring some amount of risks, and how we are mitigating or maintaining these risks into certification. So here we have risks, and risk control measures are here, and then assessment frequency, remainant risk, how much risk is going to remain, and rationale for the risk reduction and acceptability. Why do we accept this risk as acceptable and remainant risk is acceptable? These risk control measures are acceptable. So these are the justification. So like that, we have identified independence of the certification body. Then we are talking about independence of the auditor. Auditors must be independent. Relationship related risk. We cannot have our own brothers or father in a company, or my younger brother is the chairman of a company, and we are going for the certification. There could be a perception of compromise. Independence might be compromised. There is a perceptional aspects that whether it is independent, so there is a kind of a risk. So relationship can bring risk. Independence of the auditor can bring risk. For example, somebody has worked in a company just a year ago, and he has left the organization, joined the certification body, and coming for the audit. He might have left with some kind of discontent, or he was very good and with the top level people, and he was a manager. So his presence can bring some kind of risks of independence. So if somebody has left an organization 2 years before and has got nothing to do with this company any longer, and he is not working in their competitor any longer, so that risk is considered to have come down. to an acceptable level. Confidentiality related risk. So everything has to be kept confidential. So we get a mutually binding non-disclosure agreement and confidentiality agreement that nothing can be disclosed by you because we are going for an audit and we see a lot of confidential information. The client show us those records, those evidences with trust and faith. We cannot take them to the market and disclose those things because that amounts to a breach, a serious breach of trust. So we have to make sure we uphold those confidentiality and the relationship of organization. Financial risk could be there is a business element. Certification body's revenue has to come from the certification business. Let us take a case that certification body feels, the auditor feels that this organization is not worthy of the certification in its current state of affairs and with the evidence that they have seen during the audit. The customer can say, sorry, we are not going to pay you. Give us certification, we pay you. So the certification became conditional. So now they are going to twist the arm of the certification body. Otherwise, the 4 or 5 people, 4 or 5 days, they have gone and spent their flight fare, accommodation, all those things they have gone for the certification. They would have certified this organization, recommended certification if there was evidence of conformity. Unfortunately, in this case, it is not there. So the audit team cannot recommend. So financial risk is a big risk in operation in certification business. So how do we control it? We do one thing. We sign a contract and we also ensure that they are bound by the contractual term that regardless of the outcome of the audit, positive or negative, you have to pay us our fees. Now they can sign, they may not be able to pay, they may not pay. So we normally take a percentage of it so that we can recover the cost and we can still have our independence intact. For our accreditation body sends straight away a budget. There'll be $10,000 or $15,000 is your budget. And you pay $15,000 now, transfer the full amount of money. If we have to spend more time for whatever reason, we will have the additional amount charged to your company for the extra time and the effort that we are spending. If we finish the job on time and everything goes fine and there's some surplus amount that you paid us, we return it back to you. So those kind of things, but they remain absolutely free from any sort of financial risk and they decide whatever is best for us. So when we are audited by JAG, when we are audited by ISET, when we are audited by IRCA, all those organization charges us in advance and make sure that they decide based on the merit of the case and based on our demonstrated competence. So liability claims and all these things, client organization related conflicts. So these are another conflicts. So like that, we have all these risks identified. For example, resource constraint. Suddenly we found that in a country we don't have adequate auditors or we don't have something has happened or 2 days before the audit, the auditor has fallen sick and they were all ready for the certification audit. So we'll have to make alternate arrangements and things like that. Sometime auditors' competence can come linguistic barrier, the language of the audit. So imagine you are going to Spain for an audit and vast majority of the people are speaking Spanish. They don't speak English and you don't speak Spanish. So you need to have a translator. You go to China, you go to Germany, you go to Middle East, many countries in Middle East. Most of the people, a vast majority of the people are speaking Arabic. They may not be speaking English. So how do you speak to them? So you may have to understand Arabic or you may have to have a translator for that purpose so that language doesn't become a barrier, things like that. So resource related risks, auditors availability, risk arising out of outsourcing. Sometimes we have a partner organization. For example, in Nigeria, we have got a partner. They do audits on our behalf. Now, they are doing only audit. They perform audit based on our approval and approval of an auditor for a specific audit. So we approve the auditor, we authorize the audit, and they perform the audit, send the report to us, we review the audit report, and we make the decision. The certification decision is done by TCB's, the certification decision committee. And based on that, the certifications are granted. Therefore, there is a risk we have reduced that the certification is controlled by us. A part of this, which is the auditing part, is outsourced to our partners based on their competence to audit. And we also ensure that the auditor has got sector specific knowledge and competence. For example, in oil and gas sector needs different types of experience. So the auditor who is going for that, he or she has this kind of experience. If somebody is going for a pressure vessel manufacturing plant, so they have to have those kind of experience. And someone is going for financial sector, for example. So we don't have an accreditation. So possibly we will decline, we'll politely apologize and regret that we cannot certify an organization like this. This is not our core competence. Hospital, for example, we don't certify hospital, but for hospitality industry, like hotels, like motels, we can do. So depending on that, we have to identify whether our company can certify them with certainty. And we have got competent auditor for those scope of work. Everybody need not be expert in everything, but we should have collective competence to audit that organization that you have discussed in auditor's competence. There's a chapter called auditor's competence. So we ensure that the audit team has got the right competence to do an audit comprehensively. Everybody need not be expert in everything, but collectively they should be able to do the audit, and collectively they must have all knowledge that is required for certification of such kind of a company. So this is another risk. Familiarity we have talked about. So then these are the kind of pressure from interested groups. Somebody is pressurizing that, sir, we need the certification. Without the certification, we'll miss a big contract. So there can be some kind of undue provocation and pressure. So we'll have to, have processes and ability to withstand this kind of pressure and overcome this pressure. So somebody says, yeah, we understand that you are in a pressure. We are also in a pressure to give you a certificate and recommend certification. We expect you to provide evidence of your conformity. Once you show us, and we are happy, we are confident that you can get certification in a short period of time, but you have to demonstrate competence. You have to demonstrate your processes in place. You have to provide evidence of your conformity to the requirement. Once it is done, for sure, we are here to recommend the certification. Like that, you have to, communicate and overcome the pressure. Sometimes it can be mounted. Risk arising out of auditor's competence, I've already talked about. Sometimes auditor may have some lack of experience in certain areas. In that case, we introduce a team, for example, a technical expert in the team. So we say independent technical expert to support the team. And by doing this, for every assignment, we check whether the audited CV, we verify their experience is good enough or not. If not, we provide a technical expert for every assignment. And we also annually review the performance. And based on that, we bring the risk to an acceptable level. Sometimes we send witness audit and things like that, like improper, inadequate sampling. I've already mentioned sampling can bring risk. Scope of the audit can bring risk. And a risk arising out of auditor attributes. Sometimes auditors are very arrogant. If an auditor is arrogant, it can bring huge risk. The language can become a big risk for the auditor. Their personal behavior, their punctuality or lack of it can profoundly impact the reputation of the certification body and the whole certification process. Sometimes the auditor goes with an attitude that, oh, I know everything. Yeah, I know, and their knowledge is not supporting them. Rather, it becomes a kind of arrogant because of their perceived superior knowledge. So your knowledge should make you more humble, not more arrogant. And trust me, the more humble you are, the more powerful you are. You can always say, we are here to offer a great quality service to you. We don't proclaim to be the technical expert in everything. We appreciate that in many of the areas you have or you possess much more superior knowledge, technical knowledge in the areas, and we appreciate that. You can also learn from the audit process. We are having more knowledge in the system. So our knowledge, our experience is only going to be utilized to assess how well you are documenting your system, how well you are performing your work, and how well you are achieving your objectives, and how effectively you have implemented your system. Things like that. So more humble you are, more powerful you are, more respected you would become. If you are arrogant, you will not be liked. And if you are arrogant, if you start throwing some kind of attitude and, well, I would see how this can be done. Okay, I'm giving you suggestions. Okay, I'm suggesting you please do this. You have got no business as an auditor to give suggestions or recommendation. You can say this is not meeting the requirement. That's it. But you cannot say, I think you should be doing it like this, is not the role of the auditor at all. Or you can say, I'm trying to help you out, do it this way, do it that way. This, you are overstepping your role. So never, never breach your protocol, and a great auditor attributes will make you great world-class auditor. So be humble, be punctual, be flexible, be smiley, be friendly, be diligent, be diplomatic, all those kind of goodness. Yeah, be proactive, organized, decisive, and all those things that we have discussed in the auditor's attributes. Please go through that. That's very, very vital. To become great auditor, you have to develop great attribute of an auditor. So auditor attribute can become a risk. It has happened I've heard cases when the auditor was so arrogant, and they were kind of, their attitude, the way they were showing was kind of humiliating and insulting to the auditee and the client. Just imagine, you are going to offer a service, certification service, management system assessment service, and your customer has given you a chance to offer your service. So they have done a favor to you to offer your service. You've got no reason to be arrogant and humiliate them and insult them. So be very, very careful and treat them with utmost respect as an auditor. So this is how we have identified different types of risk managing certificate. Sometimes it can happen that the certification body auditors are raising some non-conformity and they are not accepting. The auditee is not accepting. So that kind of a risk. Sometimes they don't allow a certification body to go for the surveillance audit. The audit certification cycle is typically for 3 years. Now, this is subject to a condition that every year there is a surveillance audit, and that is done to ensure that the certified client is monitoring and maintaining the system and continuously improving their system, because your company is associated with them now. You have given your certification to them based on trust that they will follow the system. And you have done only a random sampling basis audit. And that's what is the best way, and that is the only way the whole world is moving. Now, you have given your logo, your accreditation body logo. So it is expected that they are following quality management system or occupational health and safety or environment or whatever management system, energy management system, business continuity, whatever standard, risk management, for example, information security management system, for example, facility management system, for example, road transport safety management system, for example, school management system, educational institution management system, for example, any system, they have to show the compliance. Now, they are not allowing you to go there for the surveillance audit. Now, if you are not given access for the surveillance audit, how can you maintain their certification? How you can continue their certification? So you may have to request them that you want to come for the surveillance audit. It's a requirement within a year. The surveillance audits are done. If it is not done, you can give few days here and there just because of some exigencies, some kind of situation beyond the control of the organization. For example, a natural calamity, a war-like situation, or something beyond the control of the certified client. Otherwise, in normal condition, you must do first surveillance audit within 12 months from the date of audit and the certification. Therefore, if they are not allowing you, you may have to give a letter of suspension And finally, if they are not still allowing you to go, you may have to suspend and withdraw the certification. And the part of the contract would be that we'll remove your name and it will be displayed in our website, because you may still claim to have our certification when you have withdrawn it. And the people, if they want to verify, they can visit our site and see that your certification is withdrawn, which is the latest status of your certification. And that's the part of the certification contract. Sometimes short notice audit. Short notice audit is happening because of bad news in the market. For example, huge product recall, accident, incident, or some problem happened with this organization. They're not, the market information says it's not the same good organization that you have certified before, or you recommended certification as an auditor, or your organization certified this organization. So you may have to go for a short notice audit. Short notice audit can happen in a very short notice. Even there's the only exception where it can be even unplanned. Suddenly you have gone, or within a notice that, gentlemen, we are coming tomorrow for this audit, for a short notice audit because of this purpose, and you should be given access. If they are not giving access, your certification, your logo is being used by them, your accreditation body logo is used by them. So you may have to withdraw their certification. So those kind of things are also part of it. So this is how you have seen we have identified different types of risks. And this is what is needed for any certification body to ensure that they have done a thorough risk assessment, all the risk mitigation measures are in place, and the remnant risk is to an acceptable level. And you periodically review those risks. Once again, if something new has come, context might have changed, and then you may have to revisit those risks, but you have to keep those risks under control. That's the risk-based approach. I am sure this was very interesting for you. There are some questions. What kind of risks you see from confidentiality? What kind of risk you see from conflict of interest? If somebody has worked in your company 2 years before, and then he's coming as an auditor, you may raise, but how do you ensure? So normally what we do, we send the proposed list of the auditors with the audit plan, where scope, objective, criteria, proposed name of the auditor, time to start, time to end, entire number of days, who will be doing audit, which department will be auditing. All those things are, included in an audit plan, which is sent to the customer sufficiently in advance for them to review, agree, or fine tune, including acceptance of the auditor. And normally we make a generic comment. If you do not revert back to us within 7 days, we assume that you have accepted all the auditors and you don't have any objection. You suddenly cannot come 1 day before saying that no, this man we do not accept, or this person, this lady, this lady auditor, we are not accepting because she was, for whatever reason, she was working here, she worked for your competitor, or some reason, whatever reason. So once this notification is given, then the client has got a chance to look at this and accept or object to deployment of an auditor. And that's how we ensure everything is fair. This is a fair, and this is an interesting business. This is basically, there was a time auditors were coming with a lot of arrogance. Over a period of time, we also understood that it is a high profile, very intelligent level of service that you are giving. Just imagine in 2 days' time or 3 days' time, you are auditing and going deep into the organization, taking few samples. You are assessing the competence of an organization. You say that, yes, we recommend you follow your work in accordance with an international standard, which is ISO 9001. So you have to be a superbly experienced person and diligent, intelligent person to assess the competence of an organization in a very short period of time. So you have to be matured. You have to be respectful for others and giving them very high value service. You are actually assessing the management system of an organization, which they're proud of their company, and you are auditing that system and saying yes, it meets the requirement, or no, it does not meet the requirement. So it's a very important job that you do. Therefore, you need to have a lot of preparation and a lot of risks. So therefore, you have to prepare yourself thoroughly well before you go for the audit. I'm sure you have enjoyed this session. I'm sure you appreciate the value of this session, and I request you to prepare yourself to become a great auditor.